What's up, guys? Let's get in the van. We're going back to the past today. We got to. Because it seems like things are ramping up. And we got to get equipped with some information here as to how we became disinheritors. As of late, there's been a lot of folks thinking they know what makes you, quote, American. There's been a lot of folks that think that this place belongs to them. Gotten real territorial. I think it's about time we get territorial. Word up. I'm not inciting violence. Don't you ever think that. However, things look like they're about to start coming to people's doors. I could be confused. That's what it looks like. Cities are being invaded. I was born in D.C. Yes, I was. That invasion feels very personal to me. I have a lot of family in what they used to call Chocolate City. He knew what he was doing when he decided to invade. There's an underlying theme for most of the cities that are being invaded right now, right? It's almost like an army, or listen, when I go back in time and I look at some of this shit, these mofos really make me laugh. They have been romanticizing what it is to be American without putting in any of the work. That's the funny part, okay? The mofo that's actually sending out the orders to invade these cities ain't never put in no work. He don't come from no line of people that know what it's like to put in work. I do. Honestly, me and Unifiers is the only generation that didn't serve in my line. Now, I'm not going to sit up here and tell you we always fought on the right side. I'm not proud of that, but I'd never hide that. See, that's the difference between me and these mofos at the wheel right now. They want to hide their history. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you exactly what this mofo trying to hide. Alright? Just go on a journey. We're going to talk about how we got here. How we got stuck with these mofos. Okay? They're not inheritors. They're thieves. Let's go to the word America. A few of you probably done this study already, but let's do it together. In 1507, the Western Hemisphere, North and South America. See, so this is the stuff I be talking about when I say these mofos is illiterate, okay? Because if we're talking North America, which is the territory that we occupy, you don't never hear these mofos say North America. And honestly, it's more like Central America, because we would be including even Canada in some statements if you say North America. But you will never hear these motherfuckers say this is more like Central or North Central America, right? The United, quote, States of America. So this is really the U.S., okay, that they're occupying. But these mofos are so hell-bent on being territorial or invoking fake ownership and inheritance over everything. Right? I think of cancer, how the cancer just spreads or looks to spread. These mofos are like cancer. Let's keep going. Cartographer Martin, this name right here, we're not going to fuss about it, made this book right here. All right? It was in Latin. Made 2 trips, we're right here, right, in 1454 through 1512. Made 2 trips to the New World as a navigator and claimed to have discovered it. His published work put forward the idea that it was a new continent, and he was first to call it Novus Mundus, right? The New World. This guy was the first to coin this term that we now have heard. I don't want to say we use it because to us this was just our world. This is the term to the hijackers, right? New World. America, right, is more easily Latinized than Vespucci. The sense in English naturally was restricted towards the British colonies, then the United States, what I told you. It is 1,000 pities that the puny witticisms of a few professional objectors should have the power to prevent, even for a year, the adoption of a name for our country. At present, we have clearly none. There should be no hesitation about Appalachia. In the first place, it is distinctive. America is not. I wonder why America was not. Could it be because America is very closely associated with one of Stephen's sons' names, Ameris? Could it be? Let's keep going. And can never be made so. We may legislate as much as we please and assume for our country whatever name we think right. But to use it will be no name to any purpose for which a name is needed, unless we take it away. What? We can take it away from the regions which employ it at present. South America is America and will insist upon renaming it so. Okay, this was found in the Edgar Allan Poe Marginalia, right, in Graham's magazine, 1846. Fredonia, okay, Fredonian, Friday, Friedish, and Co. These extraordinary words, which have been deservedly ridiculed here, as well as in England, were proposed some time ago, and countenanced by 2 or 3 individuals as names for the territory and people of the United States. The general term American is now commonly understood, at least in all places where the English language is spoken, to mean an inhabitant, all right? An inhabitant, all right, of the United States, and is so employed, exempt where unusual precision of a language is required. The man's name, Amerigo, in Germanic said to have derived from Gothic Amalrich, literally work ruler. The Old English form of the name has come down as surname Emerick, but Samar don't know what she's talking about when she says there's this link to Stephen the Moor, who ran off and made Hungary, to this name America. And when I told you up here, when the dude says, hey, there's no proof that this name is actually connected. Right? Can't find it right now, but I showed y'all already. You know what I'm talking about. But I said to you guys, that's because there's this link to the name Ameris. That's why they like the name Appalachian better. They felt like, hey, this is this new name. And people were laughing at the names Fredonia, okay? Right here. But you cannot deny that Ameris is going to come up in this joint. And who told you this first? I did. I'm sure y'all get sick and tired of Stephen, but we cannot bring these mofos in without bringing Stephen in, unfortunately. That was our traitor. That was the line of Judah. The scepter shall not depart, nor the lawgiver, all right, until who it belongs to. Let's keep going, all right? There's that Ameris, all right? The Italian fem form merged into Amelia, all right? The colloquial pronunciation, Americae, is by at least 1643 in poetry. The unstressed syllable and the short vowel make problems at the end of a metrical line. Okay, Africa right here got the same treatment, Africae, and sometimes Britannia. America continued to be so rhymed through mid-19th century in popular patriotic songs. All right, and they show you right here this, the spelling with the K is associated with the KKK, right? The Knights. Okay. If you ask me, that's what that K is really standing for, right? So they brought in the Appalachian, right? Let's see what they're saying here. Cultural and geographical regions of inland eastern U.S. 1880s, right? This is not the entire U.S. This is all they had control of in the 1880s. If you look at old maps, you're going to see the western half actually under the control of Mexico. It is from the 1880s, from the Appalachian Mountains, which are its core. Earlier, Appalachia was proposed as a better name for United States of America by Washington Irving in 1839, though he preferred Allegheny. Wait, I'm fucking that up. Alleghania. Yeah. Almost like Allegheny, but Alleghania. There we go. And he may get the credit for coinage of the word. All right? See America, which we already did, right, y'all? So now we have familiarized ourselves with where we're getting this word from, right? And Samar ain't lying when she says there's that Ameris connection, right? Now these mofos done made a song up. And I want y'all to listen to the words of this song, right? This is by this dude who is obviously having cognitive dissonance. He believes that this is everybody's land, okay? Like there's no inheritor and no rightful owner of this land. Contracts are null and void if you have no ownership, okay? I want y'all to understand, in the contract world, all these treaties and stuff is null and void. Nobody that made these treaties had the right to make the treaties. That's why to whom it belongs will be restored. These mofos had no right. Not nobody under no more. Under no more nation, which was more than likely Judah. They didn't have no right. And not near one of these imposters. The WILDMEN that inherit this land right now, they didn't have a right either. And I'm going to show you how they felt they got the right. This mofo, Woody Guthrie, sings, "This land is your land, and this land is my land. From California to the New York Island, from the Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters, the land was made for you and me." A lie. No, I'm sorry, Woody. You need to take your ass back wherever you came from, Mr. Guthrie. This ain't your land, mama. This land was given to me, not you. As I went walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway. I saw below me that golden valley. I bet you did. The land was made for you and me. I roamed and rambled. I followed my footsteps to the sparkling sands of her diamond deserts. Who's this her? All around me, a voice was a sounding. This land was made for you and me. There was a big high wall there that tried to stop me. Sign was painted, said private property. But on the backside, it didn't say nothing. This land was made for you and me. A big wall tried to stop you because this was private property. When the sun comes shining, then I was strolling, and the wheat fields waving, and the dust clouds rolling. A voice came chanting as the fog was lifting. This land was made for you and me. This land is your land. This land is my land. From California to New York Islands. From Redwood Forest to the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. You hear this lie? I could bet you any amount of money, and I've never researched this mofo, that this mofo is a married-in Judite, right? With the belief that because he's married into this Bavarian line, that they got some ownership here because a thief gave them land grants. Watch. Let's keep going. So this is Trump's America right here. You see shout out to Unifiers for this photo. Do you see the price of this 3-pack of meat? Do you see it? Every day we wake up under some new shit. Okay? You best believe. Okay? This is their America. Right? Now check this out. There's 2 ladies that I watch on YouTube. I really like these ladies. I can't remember both of their names. One's name is like Pumps or something. And she calls 45, 47 Kate's McTaco Tits. Right? Short for Trump's always chickens out. I'm no longer hiding behind not saying this mofo, this thief's name, this wild man's name, this Bavarian, this German knight / magician / sorcerer. I don't care no more. Because this land is my land, sir. According to the litmus test that this mofo right here, who thinks this is his land, who hails from the Appalachia, alright? He thinks it's his land, alright? But he puts forth a litmus test. I guess mofos got tired of hearing these mofos keep yelling, American, American, right? Right? It's in their very word, MAGA, right? They want to make America great again. They ain't never had nothing to do with America being great. Not near one of you. Not near one of your pathetic cabinet. Show me one member of your thieving ass cabinet that had anything to do with this land being great. You can't show me one, sir. Now watch, when they call this mofo, the ladies that I watch call this mofo Little Smoky. because god damn it, he looked like he wearing eyeliner to me too. So I love it. They call his ass Little Smokey. So listen to what they asked. Little Smokey gonna go off on a tangent like he often does. But I like this tangent that he goes off on, because they asked him a straightforward question. What makes someone American? Or who should be able to say that they're American, right? Now listen to this. J.D. Vance, you may not be American. This is, quote, according to the article writer, they have their opinion, that J.D. Vance's false framing of American identity, right? That his litmus test is a false framing. I personally like J.D. Vance's litmus test. I'll show you why. In a recent speech, Vice President J.D. Clown Vance made comments about what defines an American. He argued that America should not be defined by shared ideals like those in the Declaration of Independence, right? But instead suggested ancestry, such as having Civil War era roots, gives people a stronger claim. To make his case, he created a false scenario that if America were defined by ideals, then billions of foreigners would have to be admitted immediately. This is not grounded in reality. Citizenship and belonging are based on law and civic commitment, not automatic open borders. This is ironic, isn't it, y'all? Come on, Israel. Sitting here hearing this shit is ironic to you, ain't it? Because this is them, right? Let's keep going. By inventing an unrealistic problem, he shifts the debate towards bloodline, which undermines the idea that anyone can become American through principles and citizenship. All right? But I like J.D. Vance's litmus test, right? That this, right? The bloodline, where'd it go? The bloodline should tie you to this land. Like any other place, right? Any other place you go, those people's bloodline, unless you go where with the fake folks over there, right? Any other place, that's the only thing these two nations have in common. That they like to go and steal shit. Like locusts, right? Take over shit. Right? That's what those two nations have in common. But any other nation, they're tied to the land by their blood, right? Unless you're a colonist, you are tied to that land by your blood. So I like J.D. Vance's litmus test. The irony, though, is J.D. Vance don't know his boss's background, or he wouldn't have said this. So let me help you out, Little Smokey. Come on, we going on a journey. Come on down to the front line. You can get in this van too. Watch this. This is why they believe they have ownership to this land. I'm going to show you. And I'm also going to show you what these mofos think they in, right? They think they some sort of a lineage of, watch, I'm waiting for this joint to load. Pause this for them. These mofos think that they are knights, okay, in a literal sense. And I'm going to take you on that journey next week. It'd be too long of an episode. This shit gets crazy, and I'm going to show you, all right? But today, I just want to focus on Gisela and this connection that these mofos think they have to the land, right? I couldn't open up this one right here, so we're just going to remove that. And I'm just going to take you to the Google search because this is way quicker, right? So I say Gisela Archduchess knights, right? Because these knights come with Stephen the Moor's wife. Okay, when he gets into this union, it comes with perks, and one of the perks are these knights. Okay, Stephen was going to capitalize off of these mercenaries, these sorcerers. He had a group of thugs, right? This is what these lineages are from, that he could send into the lands where he originally came from and the lands where he betrayed his people and take over. Watch. Yes, the statement is accurate. Queen Gisela's arrival in Hungary in 996 brought many Bavarian knights. I want you to remember that word, guys. You're going to see this word shaped so many different ways, all right? Bavaria, Austria, Hungary, Swabia. Okay, you're going to see many different names, all right? But it's all going to, in the end, be Germany, all right? Hold on to that, because they don't want you to know they're from Germany. Okay? Yeah, she bought many Bavarian knights who received land grants from her husband, King Stephen I of Hungary. These knights served as Stephen's auxiliaries and were instrumental in defending the new kingdom against rebels. Okay, I wonder who those rebels were. Was that Judah with that rebel flag, that Confederate flag? Because they going to hijack it at some point. I'm going to show you. And I'm going to show you how this Bavaria most definitely ties back to number 4547, President Trump himself. You, sir, are German. You ain't American. And you know you ain't American. This is why your family was hiding the fact that you are German for a while. All right? Let's get to it. I'm not hiding the fact you're German. I don't ever intend to do that, because it looks like, according to your vice president's litmus test, I'm way more American, just like we've been saying, than you are, sir. You ain't got no inheritance to this land. You ain't fought no wars. I'm going to show you how your country don't want you. How Germany don't want shit to do with you. Watch. Let's go, guys. We in the van. Gisela traveled to Hungary with a retinue of knights from Bavaria. Okay? This little girl had these knights travel with her to make sure she got to Stephen safely. The Eastern Knights. Land grants. And they're from Bavaria. King Stephen I granted these knights land, which encouraged them to settle. They're going to say in Hungary, bullshit, because I'm going to show you where the knights are actually at. Because if you're going to tell me the knights are the ones with land grants, and I see knights in America, then we know where these land grants came from and what they were giving them the rights to. Military support. These knights provided crucial military support for Stephen, helping him to defeat rebels like Kopania in 997 and later other opponents who did not accept the new Christian order. Okay? Put the goddamn book down, guys. These are Christian orders. It's a lie after lie when you open up a book and it starts with he begot he begot he. But listen, I'm not here trying to twist your arm. You do what you feel led to do. But I'm out here seeking our truth. The truth that was once widespread in the so-called Americas. Alright? And it looked like they burnt some of that truth to death or hung it to death. Okay? Because we know over here Anacoana was what was so-called Arietto. And that was a widespread practice, right? Until these mofos came in here with their Christian order. Western influence. This integration of Western Knights was part of Hungary's broader strategy of opening up to Western European culture and alliance, which was bolstered by Gisella's royal lineage and connection to the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, she's connected to the Holy Roman Empire, which is a connection to Levi. Right? That's where these knights come from. These are Holy Roman Empire knights. Okay? And look, Stephen I of Hungary, German Duchess, right? Right? The story of Gisela. They keep trying to throw you off the scent of this German shit by telling you it's Bavaria, right? All right, let's go back to the folder, because in the folder we couldn't get open that other one we wanted to get open, right? All right, so let's move on to this list of what nobles look like, right? Because there's this thing called nobles, knights, and serfs in a system called feudalism. And in this system, there is a, look right here, pyramid for how this shit's supposed to go. All right? And at the very top is the Pope/church. What I told you, Holy Roman Empire. Right? We so busy looking at Stephen giving out grants, but it's looking like Gisela got more to pull. She got these knights that's going to go over here and enforce this shit. Okay? They're the monarchy. But above them is always the church. That's why he got to marry Gisela. She's the Holy Roman Empire connection to the church. You're going to have the monarch, the nobles, the knights/vassals. Who was a vassal? Huh, guys? Who was a vassal? Assyria was a vassal. So you got knights, you got vassals, you got merchants, farmers, and craftsmen. And at the very bottom, you got peasants and what they call serfs. I'm going to introduce you to this term, right? Now, I want you to remember that these guys came in here, right, under these different terms and treaties. Colonial Americans engaged in many forms of unfree labor, with great number of youths moving away from their family to become servants or apprentices. The term and their servants were spelled out in contracts called indentures, legal agreements that were entered into by the child's parents and the child's new master. Okay? And they got an example right here of what these contracts typically look like. Okay, Benjamin Franklin is said to have initially been an indentured servant to his brother, right? What do that sound like to y'all, guys? This remind me of Esau having to serve Jacob, right? You know, it's a similar system. Okay, so you guys can get affiliated with this system. Just go ahead and look that up. I want to go back to the feudal system. Feudalism emerged in response to the need for governments to be able to protect their subjects. Right? This is what the Southern Kingdom wanted, to become a feudalist system. Okay, watch. I'm going to tell you, watch. The system worked because lower classes agreed to serve upper classes in exchange for protection, right? When the system ran smoothly, it led to peace and prosperity for everyone. Above all, the king relied on the system to enable him to run the kingdom smoothly. The king, at the top of the feudal system, was the king. He presided over the land that he ruled, directing and controlling what happened in the kingdom. In kingdoms so vast, the kings relied on nobility and knights to help manage their subjects. Right? What did it tell us in 1 Solomon? That the king was going to have your sons run ahead of him, turn your daughters into bakers and perfumers, right? So this is lining up. Nobility. The king would divide his kingdom amongst the nobility, who were the richest and most powerful families in the realm. Each noble operated a particular portion of the kingdom, overseeing and governing it. This is the cabinet, guys. This is your current cabinet, right? The wrong stuff. That cabinet full of losers, right? We got an asshole from Fox News. We got folks that ain't never been, look. There is a reason why it took them so long to catch someone's recent highlighted death, to catch that killer, guys. It took them a long time, which is unheard of typically from what they would call these former bureaucracies, right? And they even asked for the public's help on this joint, right? Which was also unheard of. You ain't never heard of the alphabet folks coming to people asking them for help to catch nobody's person that took them out. Okay, but you saw that lately, right? But this is the nobility that we're stuck with, right? I want you not to look at these mofos as cabinet members, and instead nobility. Okay? In exchange for their power, the nobles pledged their loyalty to the king. Okay, this is what we're seeing now. We're not seeing no democracy. It never really has been one. But now you're seeing the firm hold on what is really a kingdom, right? A new pharaoh has risen up, right? So part of that loyalty means a willingness to raise a local army should their king call for it. Have we not seen this? Have we not seen the National Guard being deployed? During the Middle, and even ICE agents, during the Middle Ages, armies were localized and ordinary men took up arms at the command of the local nobility. Are we not seeing people being given $50,000 sign-on bonuses to become an ICE agent? This is nobility, right? This is the equivalent, okay? Knights and vassals. Even the land of the nobility was divided up into smaller parcels run by knights or vassals. Both of these groups traded military support for land in the local manors. This is our army, guys. As high-ranking people, knights often presided over an entire manor, while vassals provided only over the land needed to support their family. All right? So get acquainted with this. They're the greatest lords of Europe, all right? Nobles, right? Now, they have this misconstrued because this noble looks like the Pope, right? But they had the Pope over the monarchy, all right? So you got your knights right here. And guess who's at the bottom? The good old peasants who owned no land, so they were not part of the feudal system. But many peasants worked on land owned by nobles or knights. In both cases, the knights and vassals had command over the serfs that worked the land. In exchange for this control, they promised to fight in defense of the Lord and the king if needed. Now let's get down to the people on the bottom. Serfs by far the largest portion. I want you now, Israel, right? Figure out where you fit in, right? Are you a king? You a knight, a vassal? Are you down here at the bottom? Figure it out. Let's get into this definition. This is the largest population of the portion of the people in the Middle Ages, which were the serfs. Some serfs, such as cobblers, bakers, coopers, or blacksmiths, had relative freedom and even owned their own homes or businesses. Most serfs, however, lived a very hard life that was not that much different than slavery. They were tied to the land they worked and were not allowed to own anything. Most barely made enough to survive and often suffered of hunger. Which one do you think you are? Even though you are the inheritor of this so-called bread basket, right? Even though you're the inheritor of all of the everlasting hills, the dew from heaven, right? You are the one that's going to suffer from the hunger. They're going to admit to it, right? The largest portion of the population, right? You seem to have forgotten that you're the largest part of the population, not the fake inheritors in charge. But you are serf, and you are going to suffer from hunger more than likely than anybody. You're going to barely make enough to survive. Is that not your story right now? Huh? I can speak for myself. I barely make enough to survive. Okay? And I don't say that for you to feel sorry for me, because I'm surviving. Oh, you best believe tomorrow's surviving. But it ain't like back in the days when you had this cushion, this egg, this savings, right? Nowhere near that. Right? Let's go back to the folder. I want to talk about these knights, because we're going to get into how these mofos were actually fleeing some shit. I want you to go on Google and do yourself a favor. Go through different languages and hit this MAGA word. I need you to do yourself a favor and do that, because I tend to think, there's different translations it's going to lead to. Even devil, which we don't subscribe to all of that devils and angels bullshit over here, right? I tend to lean more towards this magician shit, And I'm going to show you how Bavaria has a history of magician shit, sorcery, right? Because we already saw that these mofos believe that they need to go to the high place. This mofo was exhausted after this meeting. This mofo went into hiding for well over a week. People thought he was even deceased, possibly, right? I don't know if y'all remember the week of this cabinet meeting. It was a big deal because it was going to be televised. And this mofo said everything in the room was picked by him himself. Okay? It was really important that everything be picked. All right? And as it concerned to the decoration of this cabinet meeting. Right? Now we see this mirror. Right? And we know what this is. This is scrying. Right, guys? This is a mofo going up to the high place. Right? They're watchtowers. Okay? They're pyramids. Okay? It's layered. I want you to see this for yourself. He said he picked out everything himself. This mofo was exhausted. This magician was exhausted after this meeting. So much so that you ain't see this magician for over a week. It exhausted him. It took something out of him. Now they keep coming to conclusion about these bruises on the hands. Now I immediately went to saline hydration, right? It reminded me of like when your veins are so flat that they can only find a vein on the top of your head. So I didn't look at it as anything major as besides like exhaustion, right? And I feel like we're on to something with this magician. But I want to get to here. I want to get to the Bavarian German that this mofo is, all right? Because I got a beef with him being able to lay claim to the title American, even though I don't really want to fuss over the ownership of the particular name. It's the lands tied to those names that I got a beef with. Now let's get to this mofo story. Friedrich Trump, right? It was originally Drumpf, but we're going to go with whatever they like. Trump first immigrated to America from Germany, okay, in 1885. Now we know Germany is also Bavaria, is also Austria, right? Is also Swabia. This is where Gisela is coming from, right? To America. He comes to America from Germany in 1885, arriving in New York City on October 19th. He was 16 years old at the time and came to escape compulsory military service in Germany. That's a big deal. All right, later on, this is going to be a big deal. Okay, this is almost like when they tried to put Muhammad Ali in the headlights for being a quote draft dodger, right? When he said this, I don't feel comfortable fighting these people for a country that ain't never fought, that hasn't recognized me as even like a human being, right? That was his argument, but he was labeled a draft dodger. So let's get down to what Friedrich did. Okay, he later became a naturalized U.S. citizen in 1892. Okay, they just became naturalized. Okay, a little over more than a century ago. Okay, because in 1992, this mofo is pretty relevant, right? So 100 years later, he makes this name very relevant, right? Let's keep going. But in 1892, Friedrich becomes a citizen, right? Somehow naturalized. I don't know how, but let's keep going. I thought that word naturalized meant you had to be born here. I could be incorrect. Let me see if this thing will... Oh, no, it's a photo, so it won't let me hover on that. While his first period in the U.S. began in 1885, he and his family later made a second move to America under duress, right? That's important. Remember the term duress, all right? But we're going to come back to that later on. In 1901, after becoming wealthy during the Klondike gold rush, right? The gold is not literal metal, guys. It's oil. Trump returned to his hometown in Germany and married Elizabeth, right? And that's how you know it's tied to the oil, because that word Elizabeth, right, is going to bring you back to the bath, which is always tied to the wells. Okay? Think Bathsheba, right? He married Elizabeth Christ. How convenient. Her name is Elizabeth Christ. This is Trump's grandmother's name, the German. The Bavarian government later discovered that he had originally immigrated to the Americas, right, to dodge the draft. I'm not making this up. If anybody got a problem with this, they should definitely put in some sort of work order to this chat linkage, this AI overview. This is what they're saying, right? That he had originally immigrated to dodge the draft and stripped him of his citizenship in 1905. Okay, he is becoming an American citizen in 1892 while possessing dual citizenship, apparently because he's not stripped of his citizenship in Germany, aka Bavaria, until 1905. Okay. As a result, he was exiled from Germany and returned to New York with his family in July 1905. His son, Fred, which is 4547's father, was born in the Bronx later that year. Okay, so he comes here under duress. So, I asked chat, well, what is this duress we're speaking of? The duress Frederick Trump and his family faced during their second move to the Americas was a deportation order from German authorities. See? So when Samar say your country don't want you, how dare you think, right, that you should be the person presiding over who should get to stay and go. You a mofo your country didn't even want. Right? You are a German reject. They ain't want you. They kicked y'all out on your ass. Let's go. In 1885, let's get to the background. Frederick Trump, and we covered this already, left his hometown of Karlstadt, okay, in the Kingdom of Bavaria, and immigrated to the United States. He made his fortune in the Yukon during the gold rush. They're not going to tell you how. Samar can tell you how. Brothels. He made it off of women on their backs. He made it off of brothels because this mofo was too lazy to work, right? This is what is genetically flowing through this mofo's blood. Let's keep going. He made his fortune off of the mofos that were working, all right, that were working in the mines. Then returned to Germany in 1901 and married Elizabeth Christ. The couple lived briefly in New York before Elizabeth became homesick and the family returned to Germany in 1904. The cause of the duress, let's get down to it. The Bavarian government discovered that Frederick had illegally immigrated to the U.S. and failed to complete his mandatory military service. Don't this sound familiar? You know what? This just seems to run in the bloodline here, okay? Remember it talked about, JD was talking about a bloodline. JD, you need to familiarize yourself with this type of bloodline because this type of bloodline does not seem to meet your litmus test, okay? Listen to this, right? Didn't complete the mandatory military service. This violated German law and meant he had lost his Bavarian citizenship. In February 1905, authorities issued a royal decree ordering Frederick to leave the country within 8 weeks or face deportation. Frederick wrote an emotional letter to the prince, all right? Prince Regent Leopold of Bavaria, pleading to be allowed to stay in, right? In it he wrote, "We were confronted all at once, as if by a lightning strike from fair skies, with the news that the High Royal State Ministry had decided that we must leave our residence in the Kingdom of Bavaria. Why should we be deported? This is very, very hard for a family." Guess what happened to Frederick Trump and his emotional letter to the prince? It was rejected. His appeal was rejected. In July 1905, Frederick and his pregnant wife were forced to leave Germany for the last time and return to New York. They had a little anchor baby, right? Well, not necessarily, because in 1892, it does say that he received naturalized citizenship here, but he's pleading to stay there. I'm confused here. You know, this don't look so American to me. You're pleading with your Bavarian prince and saying that this would be very, very hard for your family. This don't look American to me, JD. Did you know that your boss, right, your king whose ass you're kissing, who wants everybody to come kiss his motherfucking ring, that he has no bloodline ownership to, right? Did you know that his bloodline was pleading to stay there because this decision would be very, very hard on his family. This was an emotional letter to the prince in the kingdom of Bavaria. All right, somebody looked like they were being dragged away by their nails, okay, out of the kingdom of Bavaria and placed on a boat and shipped here, not really of their will, but because they had nowhere else to go. No one wanted them. Okay? You had no kingdom, sir, even though your bloodline is, in fact, German. I think the Habsburgs hail from this town of Karlstad, too. Right? That's why you went to go visit your cousin the other day over in the UK. Let's keep going. Listen, if you don't think this mofo knows he's German, check this out. Right? The return to the U.S. After their appeal was denied, Frederick and Elizabeth returned to the U.S., where they settled into New York and had 3 children, including 47. All right? Including the father, which is Fred Trump. This German ancestry was downplayed for decades by this German bloodline family. All right? Concealed heritage following World War II. All right? The father, Fred, feared that anti-German sentiment would harm his business. He began telling people he was of Swedish ancestry and raised his children under this impression. You know whose grandfathers, while this mofo is busy lying about who the fuck he is, you know whose grandfathers were fighting this war for this country that do meet the litmus test of Little Smokey, J.D. Vance? Both these motherfuckers got foreign wives. It's hilarious to me. You know whose grandfather meets those litmus on both sides? Willie James Andrews. My father's father. Well, my father was in the Navy, guys. My father's father, right, was Army. He fought in World War II. He was a sergeant. You know who fought on my maternal side? My mother's father, Ernest Himes. He was a sergeant in World War II. These mofos couldn't dodge shit. Right? There's no such thing as being able to dodge, because we need to put these mofos on the front line. Thankfully, they returned home. Thankfully. But while they were on the front line, this mofo was hiding who he really was. Over here, raking up the dollars, right? While you're hiding your true German roots. Lying and saying you're Swedish. This is deplorable. Acknowledgement of German roots, right? How far we come. This mofo repeated the Swedish origin story in 1987 in that book, The Art of the Deal, right? However, later acknowledged and expressed pride in German heritage, because he is the Grand Marshal of the German American Student Parade in New York City by 1999. So 12 years later, you're ready to embrace your German heritage. Now, what happened? Because now you keep screaming you're American. What happened? You was at the German Student Parade, right? Ready to say and ready to be the Grand Marshal of the German American Student Parade 12 years later. Okay, make up your mind. Okay, you are nothing but a magician. Alright? You are nothing but the wild man that invaded this mofo. Okay? This is what you are. This is a German tapestry. You see that X they carrying away. Right? You gonna see them stomping on the lilies. Shout out to you, Sister Vanessa. And you gonna see the wild man invade a house. right? You see a man fighting, you see a woman fighting. You see them invade a house, right? You want to know what house they're invading? Let's go to it. You know, sometimes what happens is this. Sometimes you so busy fighting your enemy, right, that somebody slips in while the two of you are fighting and beats both of y'all asses because you never even seen them come in, right? They're going to capitalize off of your fight. Right? I keep telling you that this civil war is important. This is the separation of the northern and southern kingdoms, guys, of Israel. We already proved that. But these mofos broke in while Judah was fighting Ephraim. And now you see these spots on Ephraim, right? As if he's sick. Right? You see the wild man grab Ephraim up. He's holding on to Ephraim. Right? You see it. And you see Judah about to get hit with a stick, right? Is that scepter? Right? You see Judah. These mofos came in as indentured servants, as serfs. Some of them were being guarded by knights who had land grants, right? They take over Ephraim. They take over Judah, right? Because Judah let them in, right? Judah let them in. I showed you. They get land grants from Stephen through Gisella's marriage. Judah let them in. This is the German tapestry, guys, of the wild men. And what are the wild men doing? The wild men are attacking, which looks like to be water vessels. You see the vessels at the top, guys. These look like to be ancient fossil fuels. It's two men, right? Shout out to Sister Yolanda. Again, I only saw this dude jabbing the fossil fuel in the mouth. This is almost like striking the rock, guys. And then you see a second guy with a stick over the top of the ancient water's head, ready to clobber it, ready to strike the rock, guys. They come in, swoop in, and take over the ancient oil. And this is a representation of it in this drawing. Don't believe me? What you see on the back of this so-called ancient fossil fuel, this dragon's back, guys, right? It's not a dragon per se. You know, think about what this is representing, a fossil fuel, right? Fossil fuel, the ancient water source, right? Because I keep telling you, this is almost the equivalent of plasmapheresis, right? Yeah, jabbing the source in the mouth, right? Look at the vessels at the top. Pay attention to the back of the wing of this creature. And it was given this to me, guys. It was given the shell. And I thought I was bugging. But when I count each one of those lines, I get 7. I count each one of these lines, I get 7. 7 cities of gold. 7 cities of Spola. The 7 sisters. Which I already showed y'all the 7 sisters are represented in the oil. Don't believe they're tapping into the ancient fossil fuel? Well, look at the Dresden Codex. You see that? You see that cross? The time's going to come when she is going to take back the keys from him, right? You see that white hand, that yellow foot, that brown foot, that black body, and that scepter. You see that jaguar, and you see it being drawn back up into the vessel by the crone, guys. To she who it belongs, man. This is your Shiloh. This is your water bearer. This is why she's always at the water. And it definitely belongs to her. Now y'all know why I got that Lady Liberty. It was always hers. It was always hers. And the Codex proves it through the ancient dragon depicted here with the vessels, right? He ready to strike the rock, clobber it, while Judah and Ephraim are separated, distracted from their own fight, right? Right? The Civil War. These mofos said in 1776, we got our independence, not y'all. We did. And this is why these nights are so important. But you know what, J.D. Vance? You mofos couldn't pass this litmus test if you fucking wanted to. You mofos ain't indigenous to nothing here. I'm the American. Thanks to these men's services, according to your own litmus test, we go back to the Civil War. Some not fighting for the so-called good, which you know we got to dig more on, but the Confederacy, right, was the Hebron, was the chevron of things, right? We brought the shell in. Now we bring in the chevron. Some fought on the good, right? Check that out. This Samuel supposedly fought on the good, and some didn't. You know, it's a tale of two Samuels there. But I can prove this my land, sir. And you and your funky bag of losers can't. So sorry to burst your bubble, Mr. Guthrie, but this land is my land. Sarah Samar, and you've been placed on notice. I send you this message from my front land, from my lands. I'm a bloodline inheritor of this land. You, sir, have no nation. Closest thing you would be, though, is a misplaced German. Thank you for tuning in. See you guys next week on the front line.